Life does not give you what you wish for, it gives you what you demand of yourself. You cannot walk through this world with low expectations of who you are and expect a high-quality life to meet you at the door. That's not how it works. The universe doesn't answer weak requests. It answers bold standards. If you want to attract a better life, you must first raise your standards. Because the truth is simple, you don't get what you want, you get what you are willing to settle for, and too many people have settled for less when greatness was calling them by name. Think about it. Every single breakthrough in your life, every step forward, every moment you can look back and say, that changed me, happened when you stopped accepting less and decided to demand more. You wanted more from your health, so you changed the way you ate, the way you moved, the way you lived. You wanted more from your relationships, so you stopped entertaining people who drained you and started surrounding yourself with those who inspired you. You wanted more from your career, so you stopped playing it safe, stopped shrinking yourself, and started chasing opportunities that scared you. Each time you raised your standards, life met you at that new level, and each time you lowered them, life gladly handed you mediocrity. We all know deep down that raising our standards is the doorway to transformation. But here's the problem. It's not easy. It demands honesty. It demands sacrifice. It demands that you look in the mirror and admit that you've been tolerating too much for too long. And most people aren't willing to do that. They would rather keep saying, I'm fine, when deep down they know fine is just another word for stuck. But if you want a better life, if you want to step into the abundance that's waiting for you, you can't stay stuck in fine. You have to chase extraordinary. And extraordinary is only available to those who refuse to settle. So let me ask you, what are you tolerating right now? What have you allowed in your life that you know is beneath your potential? Maybe it's the way you talk to yourself. Maybe it's the lack of discipline in your mornings. Maybe it's the people you give your time to, even though they don't pour anything back into you. Maybe it's the excuses you keep recycling, the reasons you give yourself for why you can't change, why you can't push harder, why you can't live better. You see, raising your standards is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this ends now. I don't live at this level anymore. I don't speak to myself this way anymore. I don't eat like this anymore. I don't think like this anymore. I don't surround myself with these kinds of people anymore. The moment you raise your standards, the moment you tell the world, I will no longer accept less than I deserve, something shifts. Energy shifts. Opportunities show up. People notice. Why? Because the world respects a person who respects themselves. You want better friends? Raise your standards. You want better health? Raise your standards. You want more success? Raise your standards. Don't wait for anyone to give you permission. Don't wait for someone to hand you a blueprint. Decide who you are, and then live like it every single day. You see, life will test you the moment you decide to raise your standards. It won't happen in silence. The moment you say, I'm done with the old me, temptation will come knocking. Old habits will whisper in your ear. People who benefited from your lower standards will try to pull you back down. The question is, will you stand firm? Will you hold the line? Because raising your standards is not a one-time event, it is a daily decision. Every morning you wake up and you ask yourself, do my actions today reflect the higher standards I've set for myself? If the answer is no, then you start again. If the answer is yes, then you keep climbing. Don't think for a second that raising your standards is just about discipline and sacrifice. It's about attraction. When you raise your standards, you become magnetic. You attract people who are operating on that same frequency. You attract opportunities that align with your vision. You attract respect because people recognize when you walk with self-respect. You attract abundance because you are no longer living at the level of lack. Raising your standards is not just about saying no to what's beneath you. It's about saying yes to the life that's waiting for you. But let me make this clear. Raising your standards does not mean pretending to be someone you're not. It doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean walking around with your chest puffed out, looking down on others. It means recognizing the greatness that already lives inside you, and then refusing to live in a way that contradicts it. It means saying, if I truly believed I was capable, if I truly believed I was worthy, how would I live? How would I speak? How would I carry myself? How would I treat others? How would I handle my business? That's raising your standards, aligning your actions with your true potential. Too many people are living beneath their potential because they've surrounded themselves with low standards. They hang around people who normalize complaining, who normalize quitting, who normalize laziness, who normalize mediocrity. And then they wonder why their life feels heavy, why they don't feel inspired, why nothing seems to change. Let me tell you, if you surround yourself with low standards long enough, you will start to believe that's all life has to offer. But the moment you step into a room of people with higher standards, everything shifts. Suddenly you're challenged. Suddenly you're uncomfortable. Suddenly you realize that your excuses don't hold weight anymore. And that's where growth begins. Understand this. Comfort is the enemy of raised standards. You cannot live a comfortable life and an extraordinary life at the same time. One will cancel out the other. When you raise your standards, you sign up for discomfort. You sign up for sacrifice. You sign up for lonely nights where you choose discipline over distraction, early mornings where you choose progress over procrastination, hard decisions where you choose growth over ease. But in that discomfort lies freedom. In that sacrifice lies reward. In that struggle lies strength. And let me remind you, raising your standards is not just about achieving more. It's about becoming more. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer allows life to happen to them, but chooses to happen to life. It's about becoming someone who doesn't just survive, but thrives. It's about becoming the kind of person who inspires others just by the way you live. Because when people see you raise your standards, they begin to question their own. They begin to ask themselves if maybe they've been settling too. And that ripple effect can change families, communities, generations. So don't you dare think raising your standards is selfish. Don't you dare think it's just about you. When you raise your standards, you elevate everyone connected to you. Your children see it, your friends feel it, your co-workers notice it. And before long, your courage to demand more of yourself becomes the permission they needed to demand more of themselves. That's how you attract a better life. Not just for you, but for everyone you touch. Now let's get practical. Raising your standards is not a philosophy you talk about once and forget. It's a lifestyle. It's a code you live by. Start with small things. How you wake up, how you keep your space, how you take care of your health, how you handle your finances, how you keep your word. These small standards create momentum, and momentum creates transformation. Before you know it, the little standards you set today become the foundation for the big standards you'll hold tomorrow. And don't underestimate the power of your words. The way you speak about yourself is a reflection of your standards. If you constantly say, I can't, I'm tired, I'm not enough, you are setting a low standard for your life. But if you start declaring, I am capable, I am disciplined, I am worthy of more, then your actions will rise to match those declarations. Words matter. They create the atmosphere of your standards. Let me remind you, raising your standards will not make life easy. It will make life worth it. The climb will be steep, but the view will be breathtaking. The struggle will be real, but so will the reward. You will lose people along the way, but you will find yourself. You will face setbacks, but you will discover strength you never knew you had. You will be tempted to quit, but if you hold the line, if you stay committed to the higher standard, you will look back one day and realize that everything you went through was preparing you for the life you're living now. So today is the day. Not tomorrow, not next week. Not when things are easier. Today, draw the line. Decide that the old you is gone. Decide that mediocrity has no home in your life. Decide that you will demand more of yourself, even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, even when nobody understands, because that's the price of greatness, and greatness is worth every ounce of the struggle. Raise your standards and watch your life rise with them. Speak differently. Walk differently, work differently, dream differently, and soon you will live differently. A better life is not waiting for you out there. It's waiting for you inside. Inside the moment you decide that the old standards will no longer do. So stand tall, stand firm, and don't lower your standards to fit the world. Raise them and watch the world rise to meet you. Your standards set your destiny. The life you live is a reflection of what you demand and refuse to tolerate. Think about that for a moment. Every outcome in your life, every result you see around you, every win or loss, every achievement or disappointment is not an accident. It is not random. It is not simply a product of chance or luck. It is the result of the standards you've set for yourself. You are where you are because at some point you decided this was acceptable. At some point, you drew a line in the sand and said, this is what I will live with, and this is what I will not. The house you live in, the people you surround yourself with, the career you've chosen, the health you maintain, even the way you speak to yourself in the quiet moments, all of it is a reflection of the level of demand you've placed on your life. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. You can dream about wealth, about health, about success, about happiness, but unless you raise the standard of what you tolerate, those dreams remain nothing more than fantasies. If you accept being treated poorly, you will attract people who treat you poorly. If you accept mediocrity in your work, you will never see excellence in your results. If you accept weakness in your discipline, you will always live below your potential. Standards are not just guidelines, they are the foundation of destiny. They are the invisible rules that determine the limits of your life. Ask yourself, what are you tolerating right now that is holding you back? Maybe it's the way you allow your mornings to slip away with procrastination instead of purpose. Maybe it's the unhealthy habits you excuse day after day, telling yourself you'll change tomorrow. Maybe it's the way you let negative people occupy space in your mind, draining your energy, distracting your focus, keeping you small. Maybe it's the excuses you repeat to yourself like a broken record. Too tired, too old, too late, not enough money, not enough support. These are all standards, these are all decisions, and as long as you accept them, your destiny will reflect them. The difference between a person who lives a life of greatness and a person who lives a life of regret is not talent, not intelligence, not opportunity. It is standards. The person who achieves greatness is not necessarily the one with the most potential, but the one who refuses to lower their standards. They demand more of themselves when it would be easier to quit. They demand discipline when it would be easier to procrastinate. They demand courage when it would be easier to hide. And because of that, life bends in their direction. Standards shape character, and character shapes destiny. The person who refuses to tolerate lies becomes honest. The person who refuses to tolerate laziness becomes disciplined. The person who refuses to tolerate fear becomes courageous. And over time, those standards build habits. Those habits build identity. And that identity builds a future. You cannot escape it. Your standards will either be the ceiling that traps you or the wings that carry you higher. And don't think standards are only about what you demand from others. They are most powerfully about what you demand from yourself. It's easy to say, I won't let people disrespect me. But do you disrespect yourself with the way you think, the way you speak, the way you neglect your own potential? Do you tolerate mediocrity from yourself while demanding greatness from the world? Because here's the reality. The world does not rise to meet your requests. It rises to meet your example. You cannot beg for a better life while living below the standard of it. Imagine a person who sets a standard that they will never end the day without learning something new. Imagine another who sets a standard that they will never make excuses for their health again. Imagine another who sets a standard that they will not let negative people steal their peace, no matter how close those people are. These standards are like anchors in a storm. They keep you steady when life tries to drag you backward, and little by little they pull you toward a destiny that looks very different from the one you once tolerated. But here's the thing about standards. They are not set once and forgotten. They must be protected, reinforced, and raised again and again. Life will always test your standards. The moment you say, I don't tolerate this anymore, temptation will knock at your door. The moment you say, I demand more of myself, excuses will whisper in your ear, and if you let your guard down, if you bend just a little, you start sliding back into old patterns. That's why people say success is rented, not owned, and the rent is due every day. Because your standards are only as strong as your commitment to them in the hardest moments. And raising your standards is not just about what you say no to. It is about what you say yes to. It is about choosing to demand gratitude instead of complaining, effort instead of excuses, action instead of hesitation. It is about setting a higher bar for how you show up in the world, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. When you raise your standards, you raise your energy. And when you raise your energy, you attract people, opportunities, and possibilities that match that new frequency. Think of it like this. If you walk into a room with low energy, low standards, and low self-respect, you will only attract what belongs at that level. But when you raise your standards, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You move differently. And people notice. They see something in you that demands respect. They see someone who doesn't settle. And because of that, doors open. That's not luck. That's alignment. Life doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you're willing to require of yourself. And make no mistake, raising your standards will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you certain friendships. It will cost you the ability to keep making excuses. It will cost you the easy path. But what it gives you in return is worth infinitely more. Self-respect, growth, opportunity, fulfillment, and a life that feels aligned with your true potential. You will never regret raising your standards, but you will regret living below them. So the question is simple. What is the destiny you want to create? What kind of life do you want to look back on? Because your future is not written by luck or circumstance. It is written by the standards you choose today. And every time you say, I refuse to live beneath this level, you are writing a new line in the story of your destiny. Your standards set your destiny. The life you live is a reflection of what you demand and refuse to tolerate. Never forget that. If you want to change your destiny, change your standards. If you want to live a life that inspires you, stop tolerating one that drains you. If you want to attract better, become better. Decide what you will no longer accept, and then live in a way that honors that decision. Because once you raise your standards, your life has no choice but to rise with them. Mediocrity is a choice. Settling for less becomes a habit, but so does striving for greatness. Every single day you wake up, you are making a decision about the life you will live. It may not feel like a choice, because mediocrity often disguises itself as comfort, as safety, as the easy way out. But the truth is, when you settle for less than what you are capable of, when you lower your standards to fit convenience, when you silence the voice inside of you that says, I can do more, I can be more, you are choosing mediocrity. And the more often you make that choice, the more it becomes a pattern. It becomes automatic. It becomes your normal. That's why mediocrity is so dangerous. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It creeps in quietly. It whispers, take it easy today, you can try tomorrow. It tells you this is good enough, don't push too hard. It convinces you that comfort is the same thing as peace, when in reality comfort is a trap and peace only comes from growth, from progress, from living up to your potential. If you are not careful, settling once becomes settling twice, and settling twice becomes settling for a lifetime. Before you know it, you've built habits out of excuses and you've built a destiny out of limitations. But here's the beauty of it. Just as mediocrity becomes a habit, so does greatness. Just as you can train yourself to expect less, you can train yourself to demand more. Striving for greatness is not a one-time act of courage. It is a daily decision, just like mediocrity. When you decide, I will give my best effort today, and you follow through, you've planted a seed. When you wake up the next day and repeat that decision, you've watered that seed. When you keep choosing to rise instead of settle, that seed grows into strength, into character, into excellence. Greatness is not reserved for a few special people. It is not handed out by chance. It is cultivated day by day in the small moments when no one is watching. It's in the choice to go the extra mile, to stay disciplined, to stay focused when it would be easier to drift. And the more you choose greatness, the more natural it becomes. You create habits of discipline, habits of perseverance, habits of resilience. Before long, striving for greatness feels as natural to you as breathing, and mediocrity feels like poison you can't tolerate anymore. So remember this, mediocrity is a choice, and so is greatness. Both are habits. The only difference is which one you decide to feed, which one you decide to practice, which one you decide to let define you. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can control the standards you set, the choices you make, and the habits you build. Choose wisely, because the destiny you create tomorrow begins with the decisions you make today. Self-respect creates respect. When you value yourself, the world begins to treat you with the same value. Think about how powerful that truth is. The way you see yourself is the way you train others to see you. The way you speak to yourself is the tone you allow others to use with you. The limits you place on your own life are the limits the world learns to place on you. If you walk through life apologizing for your presence, shrinking to make others comfortable, treating yourself as though you are undeserving of love, success, or happiness, then don't be surprised when the world reflects that same energy back to you. People mirror what you project. Opportunities respond to the standards you embody. Life rises or falls to the level of the value you place on yourself. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is not walking into a room believing you are better than everyone else. It is walking into a room knowing you do not have to be less than anyone else. It is choosing to carry yourself with dignity, even when no one is watching. It is choosing to honor your word because you know your promises mean something. It is choosing to take care of your body because you know your health is sacred. It is choosing to guard your mind from negativity because you know your thoughts are powerful. Self-respect is a quiet strength. It is the foundation of confidence. It is the invisible shield that protects you from being diminished by the world. When you respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you. If you accept disrespect, it will continue. If you accept dishonesty, it will repeat. But when you raise your standard, when you make it clear through your actions that you will not be spoken to a certain way, that you will not be taken advantage of, that you will not compromise your values, people learn. They adjust. They treat you at the level you demand to be treated. And the ones who refuse, they fall away, making space for those who recognize and honor your worth. This is why self-respect is so transformative. It changes not just how you feel about yourself, but the very atmosphere of your life. A person with self-respect doesn't beg for love, they attract it. A person with self-respect doesn't chase opportunity, they prepare for it until opportunity comes looking for them. A person with self-respect doesn't drown in comparison because they know their value isn't diminished by someone else's success, and because they live this way, the world can't help but notice. People are drawn to someone who carries themselves with dignity, with authenticity, with quiet confidence. But here's the part many forget. Self-respect starts within. It's not about forcing the world to give you respect. It's about first giving it to yourself. How do you speak to yourself in your own mind? Do you tear yourself down with every mistake, or do you encourage yourself the way you would a friend? How do you handle your goals? Do you abandon them at the first sign of difficulty, or do you stay true to your word because you know you deserve the reward of persistence? Self-respect is built in those unseen choices. It's built every time you say, I will not betray myself, I will not live beneath my values, I will honor who I am becoming. When you live this way, life changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing approval. You stop bending in directions that don't belong to you. Instead, you stand tall. You walk with a different energy, and people feel it. They may not know why, but they know you are someone who cannot be played with, someone who cannot be disrespected, someone who cannot be ignored. You don't even have to demand respect out loud. Your very presence commands it because you have already given it to yourself. So if you want the world to treat you with more respect, stop asking for it out there and start creating it in here. Raise the way you treat yourself. Raise the way you speak to yourself. Raise the standard of what you tolerate in your own life. And when you do, the world will rise to meet you at that level. Because self-respect creates respect, and once you understand that, you'll never again settle for anything less. Discipline builds freedom. Raising your standards means committing to habits that may be hard today, but create freedom tomorrow. Most people run from discipline because they confuse it with restriction. They hear the word and imagine rules, pressure, and limitations. But discipline is not a prison. It is the key to unlock the life you say you want. Without discipline, you are at the mercy of your impulses, your moods, and your distractions. With discipline, you are in control of your future. You trade short-term comfort for long-term fulfillment. You trade fleeting pleasure for lasting freedom. Think about the areas of life where freedom matters most. Financial freedom doesn't come from wishing for wealth. It comes from the discipline of saving, investing, and spending wisely when it would be easier to waste. Physical freedom doesn't come from luck. It comes from the discipline of movement, eating with intention, resting well when it would be easier to neglect your health. Mental freedom doesn't come from pay. It comes from the discipline of focus, of guarding your thoughts, of feeding your mind with truth when it would be easier to binge distractions. Freedom is the reward of discipline, and slavery is the price of neglect. When you raise your standards, you begin to see discipline differently. You stop treating it as punishment and start treating it as preparation. You realize every time you choose discipline today, you're buying yourself freedom tomorrow. Waking up early may feel hard now, but it creates the freedom of time and productivity later. Saying no to unhealthy habits may sting today, but it creates the freedom of vitality tomorrow. Choosing to stay consistent when no one is watching may feel lonely now, but it creates the freedom of confidence, success, and opportunity later. Discipline always demands something up front, but it always gives more back in return. The truth is, without discipline, you are trapped. Trapped by bad habits, trapped by procrastination, trapped by regret. The person who avoids discipline thinks they are free, but really they are just a prisoner of the easy road. They are chained to their excuses. They are chained to their cravings. They are chained to their own lack of self-control. And every day they pay for it with their potential, with their health, with their peace of mind. The path of no discipline always costs more in the end. But when you embrace discipline, the story changes. Suddenly you are the one in charge. You don't wait for motivation to show up. You move because discipline tells you to move. You don't let your feelings decide your future. You let your standards decide, and little by little the things that once felt impossible start to feel natural. Habits replace excuses. Progress replaces procrastination. Pride replaces regret. That is the real freedom discipline gives you. The freedom to live without constantly wishing you had done more, without constantly being haunted by what could have been. Look at anyone who has built something extraordinary in their life, an athlete, an artist, an entrepreneur, a leader. What you see is the freedom of mastery, but behind it is the discipline of practice, the discipline of sacrifice, the discipline of consistency. Greatness is never random. It is never given. It is earned through 1,000 small acts of discipline that most people were unwilling to do. And the result is freedom. Freedom to perform at the highest level, freedom to create impact, freedom to live with choices most people never get. So the next time discipline feels heavy, remind yourself why you are carrying it. You are not punishing yourself. You are freeing yourself. Every hard choice, every sacrifice, every moment you resist the easy road is a brick laid in the foundation of your freedom. And one day, when you look back, you will see that the discipline that felt so difficult became the very thing that set you free. Discipline builds freedom. Raising your standards means committing to habits that may be hard today but create freedom tomorrow. Most people run from discipline because they confuse it with restriction. They hear the word and imagine rules, pressure, and limitations. But discipline is not a prison. It is the key to unlock the life you say you want. Without discipline, you are at the mercy of your impulses, your moods, and your distractions. With discipline, you are in control of your future. You trade short-term comfort for long-term fulfillment. You trade fleeting pleasure for lasting freedom. Think about the areas of life where freedom matters most. Financial freedom doesn't come from wishing for wealth. It comes from the discipline of saving, investing, and spending wisely when it would be easier to waste. Physical freedom doesn't come from luck. It comes from the discipline of movement, eating with intention, resting well, when it would be easier to neglect your health. Mental freedom doesn't come from escape. It comes from the discipline of focus, of guarding your thoughts, of feeding your mind with truth, when it would be easier to binge distractions. Freedom is the reward of discipline, and slavery is the price of neglect. When you raise your standards, you begin to see discipline differently. You stop treating it as punishment and start treating it as preparation. You realize every time you choose discipline today, you're buying yourself freedom tomorrow. Waking up early may feel hard now, but it creates the freedom of time and productivity later. Saying no to unhealthy habits may sting today, but it creates the freedom of vitality tomorrow. Choosing to stay consistent when no one is watching may feel lonely now, but it creates the freedom of confidence, success, and opportunity later. Discipline always demands something up front, but it always gives more back in return. The truth is, without discipline, you are trapped. Trapped by bad habits, trapped by procrastination, trapped by regret. The person who avoids discipline thinks they are free, but really they are just a prisoner of the easy road. They are chained to their excuses. They are chained to their cravings. They are chained to their own lack of self-control. And every day they pay for it with their potential, with their health, with their peace of mind. The path of no discipline always costs more in the end. But when you embrace discipline, the story changes. Suddenly you are the one in charge. You don't wait for motivation to show up. You move because discipline tells you to move. You don't let your feelings decide your future. You let your standards decide. And little by little, the things that once felt impossible start to feel natural. Habits replace excuses. Progress replaces procrastination. Pride replaces regret. That is the real freedom discipline gives you, the freedom to live without constantly wishing you had done more, without constantly being haunted by what could have been. Look at anyone who has built something extraordinary in their life. An athlete, an artist, an entrepreneur, a leader. What you see is the freedom of mastery. But behind it is the discipline of practice, the discipline of sacrifice, the discipline of consistency. Greatness is never random. It is never given. It is earned through 1,000 small acts of discipline that most people were unwilling to do. And the result is freedom. Freedom to perform at the highest level, freedom to create impact, freedom to live with choices most people never get. So the next time discipline feels heavy, remind yourself why you are carrying it. You are not punishing yourself. You are freeing yourself. Every hard choice, every sacrifice, every moment you resist the easy road is a brick laid in the foundation of your freedom. And one day, when you look back, you will see that the discipline that felt so difficult became the very thing that set you free. Vision drives standards. When you see a bigger future, you refuse to settle for a smaller present. What you picture in your mind becomes the thermostat for your life. If your vision is limited, your standards will stay low, because you cannot rise above the ceiling of what you see for yourself. But the moment your vision expands, the moment you catch a glimpse of a greater possibility, you start demanding more from yourself and from life. You begin to realize that the present moment is not a prison. It is a stepping stone, and you refuse to waste it on things that keep you beneath the future you've already seen in your spirit. Think about it. Nobody who truly sees themselves as a leader settles for living like a follower. Nobody who envisions building an empire tolerates habits of laziness or excuses. Nobody who has caught the vision of health and strength will willingly poison their body every day. Why? Because vision creates tension. The greater the vision, the more uncomfortable you become with anything that doesn't align with it. That discomfort is not a curse. It's a compass pointing you toward higher standards. Without vision, people get lost. They drift. They accept whatever happens because they don't have a clear picture of what should happen. But when you have vision, you set the tone. You start saying, this is what I deserve, this is what I will work for, this is what I will no longer tolerate. Vision is what separates those who are content with survival from those who strive for significance. It is the invisible force that shapes your actions, because every decision either moves you closer to or further away from the future you've envisioned. And here's the truth. Your present might not look like your vision right now. You might be in a small apartment while you see yourself in a house. You might be working a job you dislike while you see yourself running your own business. You might be struggling financially while you see yourself free and abundant. That gap between what is and what could be is where standards are born. Because when you believe in the vision enough, you'll raise your standards in the present to align with the future you've seen. Vision makes you work when no one is watching. Vision makes you sacrifice temporary comfort for permanent success. Vision makes you walk away from circles that no longer match your direction. Vision gives you patience because you know the future is bigger than your current struggle. Vision pulls you out of bed when excuses tell you to stay down. The size of your standards will always match the size of your vision. Small vision equals small demands. Big vision equals higher demands. When you see a bigger future, you cannot tolerate mediocrity in the present. You cannot be okay with wasting time, neglecting your growth, or surrounding yourself with people who don't believe. You start treating every moment as training for the life you are building. Vision drives standards, and standards shape destiny. If you want to raise your life, raise your vision first. Because the clearer and bolder your vision, the higher your standards will rise to meet it. And once your standards rise, your life will follow. Pain becomes power. Struggles are signals that it's time to demand more of yourself. Pain is not just suffering, it's a teacher, a messenger, a reminder that where you are is not where you're meant to stay. Every struggle you face is a signal. An alarm going off inside of you saying, it's time to rise, it's time to grow, it's time to demand more. But the problem is that most people misunderstand pain. They see it as punishment, when in reality pain is often preparation. Think about it. No muscle grows without resistance. No diamond is formed without pressure. No warrior becomes strong without battles. The very thing we try to avoid, struggle, is the exact thing that shapes us into who we are meant to be. Pain is feedback. It tells you something needs to change. Something needs to be released. Something greater needs to be pursued. If you numb it, ignore it, or run from it, you miss the opportunity it's giving you to evolve. Struggles are not signs that you are weak. They are invitations to discover how strong you really are. Every time life challenges you, it's testing whether you will lower your standards to escape the discomfort or raise your standards to overcome it. Pain asks you a question. Will you settle here or will you rise higher? Those who choose to rise turn pain into power. Those who choose to settle stay trapped in cycles of defeat. And here's the truth. Every person you admire, every success story you look up to, every leader who inspires you has walked through pain. They didn't avoid it, they embraced it, learned from it, and allowed it to sharpen their focus. Their struggle became the soil where their strength was rooted. Pain humbled them, refined them, and gave them the hunger to never go back to where they started. Your struggles are not proof that life is against you. They are proof that life is shaping you. That heartbreak that forced you to respect yourself more, that failure that pushed you to work harder, that setback that made you stronger than you ever thought possible, all of it was pain, but all of it became power once you chose to rise from it. The key is perspective. If you see pain only as suffering, you'll shrink. If you see pain as a signal, you'll grow. The moment you realize that your struggles are pointing you toward higher standards, you stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift alone turns pain into fuel. So the next time life hurts, don't just endure it, study it. Ask yourself, what part of me needs to grow? What weakness is being exposed? What strength is being built? Then raise your standards to match the lesson. If pain is showing you that your health is suffering, raise your standards for how you treat your body. If pain is showing you that you're underpaid or undervalued, raise your standards for the work you do and the opportunities you pursue. If pain is showing you that your circle is toxic, raise your standards for who you allow into your life. Pain becomes power when you let it push you instead of paralyze you. It's not there to break you, it's there to build you. And every time you answer its call, you step into a stronger, wiser, more disciplined version of yourself. Struggles are signals. It's time to demand more, because your next level is waiting on the other side of your pain. Energy attracts energy. When you raise your standards, your confidence and discipline draw better opportunities, people, and experiences. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are. The energy you put into the world is like a magnet, pulling back toward you the same frequency you radiate. If you carry yourself with doubt, insecurity, and laziness, you will naturally attract people and experiences that mirror that low standard. But when you stand tall in confidence, when your habits prove your discipline, when your spirit communicates self-respect and hunger, the world responds in kind. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how people who radiate positivity seem to draw others in without even trying? Their energy is contagious. It inspires. It uplifts. They may not have the perfect life, but the way they carry themselves makes others want to be around them. The same works in the opposite direction. Someone who constantly complains, who lowers their standards, who drags through life with no drive, will find themselves surrounded by negativity, excuses, and mediocrity. That's not coincidence. That's attraction. Your standards are not just private rules you set for yourself. They are public signals you send to the world. They show up in your posture, in your tone of voice, in your habits, in your decisions. When you refuse to tolerate disrespect, people learn to respect you. When you commit to excellence in your work, better opportunities gravitate toward you. When you stay disciplined, when you sharpen your skills, when you protect your time, life responds by connecting you with people and experiences that match that same level of excellence. This is why raising your standards is so powerful. It doesn't just change you, it changes your environment. You stop attracting drama and distractions, and you start attracting peace and progress. You stop meeting people who drain you, and you start meeting people who push you. You stop stumbling into doors that lead nowhere, and you start stepping through doors that were always meant for you but required a higher version of yourself to open. Energy attracts energy. The ambitious attract the ambitious. The disciplined attract the disciplined. The focused attract the focused. That's why your number one priority should be to raise the energy you live with every day. Don't wait for better people or better opportunities to appear. Become the person who naturally draws them in. Raise your confidence by keeping the promises you make to yourself. Raise your discipline by practicing habits that demand more from you. Raise your focus by cutting out what no longer serves you. When you elevate your inner world, your outer world can't help but rise to match it. The secret is that you don't chase what you want. You attract it by becoming it. If you want love, become love. If you want respect, respect yourself first. If you want wealth, adopt the habits of wealth. If you want success, live with the discipline of success. Life mirrors back to you the energy you consistently embody. So the next time you wonder why certain patterns keep repeating in your life, ask yourself, what energy am I putting out? Because the opportunities, people, and experiences you attract are never random. They are reflections of your standards. Watch them and watch how quickly your world shifts. Consistency is the currency of transformation. Success is not about one big leap, but about daily decisions that reflect your higher standards. Too many people believe greatness comes in sudden bursts of inspiration or one dramatic breakthrough. But the truth is, transformation is built in silence, in repetition, in the small choices you make every single day. The big leap is the outcome, not the process. The process is hidden in the moments where no one is watching, where no applause is given, where no reward seems near. Consistency is where the unseen labor turns into visible change. Think about a sculptor chiseling stone. One strike doesn't create the masterpiece. Neither does two or three. It takes hundreds, thousands of strikes, each one shaping the vision more clearly until what was once raw and formless becomes something powerful. Success works the same way. Every disciplined action, every healthy choice, every focused effort is another strike at the stone of your potential. Alone, it may not look like much, but together, over time, they carve transformation. Consistency is proof of commitment. Anyone can work hard for a day. Anyone can stay disciplined for a week. But the ones who achieve real success are those who show up even when the motivation is gone, even when progress feels invisible, even when excuses would be easier to believe. Because consistency builds momentum, and momentum builds results. Skipping once becomes skipping twice, and that becomes a habit. But showing up once becomes showing up twice, and that becomes a lifestyle. Raising your standards means refusing to treat consistency as optional. It means demanding from yourself the discipline to act according to your vision even when your feelings resist. Feelings are temporary. Standards are permanent. If you only act when you feel inspired, your life will always be inconsistent and your results will always be unstable. But if you act from standards, daily, deliberately, you will transform yourself from the inside out. Success is rarely about talent alone. It's about persistence. The best athletes aren't the ones who gave their all in one game. They're the ones who trained every day when nobody was watching. The best leaders aren't the ones who made one good decision. They're the ones who made good decisions daily until wisdom became their nature. The strongest people aren't the ones who faced one storm. They're the ones who endured storm after storm without quitting, allowing consistency to turn pain into resilience. Consistency also creates trust. Trust in yourself and trust from others. When you keep showing up, when you honor your commitments, you build self-respect because you know you can rely on you. And when the world sees your consistency, it begins to trust your word, your character, and your ability. Doors open for those who have proven they won't stop knocking. It's easy to look at someone successful and assume they made one massive leap to get there. But if you look closer, you'll see a trail of small, disciplined steps that led to that leap. Every book written, every business built, every skill mastered, every body transformed, all of it came from someone making daily decisions to reflect their higher standards. One workout at a time, one practice session at a time, one page written at a time. The little things multiplied into something great. Consistency is the currency. You cannot buy transformation with excuses, with bursts of motivation, or with shortcuts. You purchase it with discipline, with patience, with repeated effort, day after day. Each decision is like a coin. On its own, it seems small, but keep stacking those coins, and soon you've bought yourself a new life. So remember this, your transformation is not waiting for one big moment. It is waiting for you to honor your standards today, tomorrow, and every day after. The small daily deposits you make into your vision will compound into greatness. Consistency is the currency of transformation. Spend it wisely and spend it daily. Greatness begins within. The world changes when you do, and raising your standards is the first step toward attracting a better life. Every person who has ever transformed their circumstances started with an inner decision. They didn't wait for the world to shift in their favor. They didn't wait for permission, and they didn't wait for conditions to be perfect. They began by changing themselves, by raising what they demanded of their own actions, their own mindset, their own habits. The outside always follows the inside. You cannot expect a better life if you don't first expect a better version of yourself. The truth is, your external reality is nothing more than a reflection of your internal standards. If you tolerate excuses within, you'll see mediocrity without. If you accept weakness inside, you'll encounter limits outside. But if you cultivate discipline, self-respect, vision, and hunger, life begins to mirror that back to you in the form of opportunities, relationships, and results that align with who you've become. Greatness is not about controlling the world. It's about mastering yourself so the world has no choice but to respond. Think about it. Two people can walk through the same door, face the same challenges, encounter the same environment, and yet one thrives while the other struggles. What's the difference? It's not luck, and it's not chance. It's standards. One person carries the identity of someone who demands excellence of themselves, who expects growth, who refuses to quit. The other carries the identity of someone who settles, who accepts less, who bends to circumstances instead of shaping them. The same environment, but two very different results, because greatness or the lack of it began within. Raising your standards is not just about doing more. It's about becoming more. It's about shifting your mindset from I'll try to I must. It's about replacing excuses with discipline. It's about refusing to live beneath the level of your potential. That decision alone, the decision to raise your standards, creates a ripple effect that changes everything around you. People start treating you differently, not because they suddenly decided to, but because your energy, your confidence, your presence tells them how to treat you. Opportunities start coming your way, not by accident, but because the world always rewards preparation and persistence. When you raise your standards, you stop begging life for favors. You command it through your actions. You stop hoping for change. You embody change. You stop waiting for greatness. You live in alignment with it daily until the results catch up to the identity you've already claimed. That is how transformation happens. Not in one big leap, not in one magical opportunity, but in the steady daily decision to hold yourself to a higher level. And here's the beautiful truth. When you change, the world cannot stay the same. People around you will notice. Some will be inspired, some will resist, but either way, your growth forces a shift in the environment. Your elevated standards create new boundaries, new opportunities, and new possibilities. The life you attract is simply the echo of the person you've become.
Greatness begins within. Don't look outside for the answer. Look inward. Don't wait for better conditions. Create them through better choices. Don't hope the world will give you more. Become someone who demands more of themselves, and the world will rise to meet you. Every dream you carry, every goal you set, every future you imagine starts with one decision to raise your standards today. Because the moment you do, the process of attracting a better life has already begun.
Standards write your story. Every choice you make is a line in the book of your life, and raising your standards ensures the story is worth telling. Life is not written in one sweeping motion. It is not captured in a single moment of triumph or failure. Instead, it is built line by line, decision by decision, action by action. Every single day, you add another sentence, another paragraph, another page to the book that is your existence. And while you cannot erase the chapters of the past, you hold the pen in the present. The question is simple. What kind of story are you writing? Is it one that inspires or one that settles? Is it a tale of courage and growth, or one of excuses and regret? The answer is determined not by chance, but by the standards you set for yourself. Standards are the invisible ink of your life's narrative. They decide how you show up in the world, how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself and others, and how much you're willing to accept. If your standards are low, your story will reflect that. It will be filled with compromises, shortcuts, and missed opportunities. But when you raise your standards, when you demand more from yourself, you elevate the quality of every chapter. You start writing a story worth remembering, a story that commands respect, a story that you can look back on with pride. Think about the people whose stories have inspired you, leaders, innovators, artists, or even someone close to you who lived with integrity and strength. What separates them is not just talent or luck. It is the standards they chose. They decided that mediocrity was not an option. They refused to write a story filled with excuses. Instead, they lived with a level of discipline, faith, and perseverance that made their lives powerful examples to others. They held the pen firmly in their own hands, and with every choice, they wrote lines that demanded respect. Your standards are guiding your story right now, whether you realize it or not. Every time you wake up and choose discipline over laziness, you are writing a line of victory. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you are writing a line of transformation. Every time you choose courage over fear, you are writing a line of strength. These lines stack up, and before long they form a story that others can read and draw inspiration from. But the reverse is also true. Every time you choose procrastination, excuses, or negativity, you are writing lines of compromise, lines that weaken the story of your life. You cannot escape this truth. Your choices are the ink. The danger is that many people don't realize how much power they have over their own story. They believe life is something that happens to them, not something they are actively writing. They hand the pen to circumstances, to other people, to their fears. But the truth is, no one else has the authority to write your book unless you allow them to. The standards you set are what either keep the pen in your hand or surrender it to the forces around you. Raising your standards is not about arrogance or perfection. It's about refusing to let your story be one of wasted potential. It's about saying, I will no longer accept what diminishes me, what distracts me, what keeps me small. It's about holding yourself accountable to the greatness that already exists within you. Because deep down you know there is more to your life than what you've been living. You know there is another chapter waiting to be written, one filled with breakthroughs and victories. But that chapter cannot begin until you demand more of yourself in the present moment. Imagine looking back on your life decades from now, reading the story you've written with your choices. What will it say about you? Will it speak of resilience, courage, and high standards? Or will it reveal compromise, excuses, and a fear of change? This vision should not create guilt. It should awaken you. It should remind you that every voice you make today is another line in that book, and you still have the power to make it beautiful. The great truth about standards is that they do not just affect your story, they influence everyone who reads it. Your children, your friends, your community, they will all in one way or another come across the lines you've written. They will look at how you lived, how you fought, how you stood tall or bowed low, and your standards will either inspire them to raise their own or give them permission to stay small. That's the ripple effect of your life. Your story becomes part of the stories of others. But the beauty is this: no matter what the previous chapters look like, you can start a new one today. The past may be filled with compromises, but the future is still blank. You can pick up the pen, raise your standards, and begin writing differently. You can decide that your story will not be defined by past failures, but by present determination. You can choose that the next lines will reflect growth, strength, and purpose. You can transform the entire trajectory of your book with one decision to live by higher standards starting now. This is why standards are so powerful. They are not just about today, they are about legacy. They are about the story people will tell when your time is done. They are about whether your book will gather dust on a forgotten shelf or be passed down as an example of what is possible. Standards write your story, and that story is too important to settle for mediocrity. So, ask yourself, what lines am I writing today? Am I making choices that honor the vision I hold for my life? Am I building a story that reflects courage and integrity? Am I raising my standards so the pages of my life inspire, not disappoint? If the answer is no, then now is the time to shift. Now is the time to demand more, to expect more, to live at a higher level. The truth is, life is short, but it is also full of potential. Every day is another page, and every decision is another line. You may not be able to control how your story began, but you have full authority over how it continues. If you want your story to be worth telling, worth sharing, worth remembering, then raise your standards and start living in alignment with the greatness within you. Because at the end of the day, your life will not be judged by what you intended to do, but by the story you actually wrote. And the pen is in your hands right now. Greatness begins when you decide your story deserves to be more. Transformation begins when you refuse to tolerate less. Fulfillment begins when you raise your standards high enough to match your potential. So take the pen, write boldly, and never forget. Your standards write your story, and when those standards rise, the story you leave behind will echo through time as one worth telling.